Hi children, good morning. How many of you remember the first part we learned? We had learned the different reasons of deforestation during the colonial period. We had analyzed all those points: expansion of railway, the attitude of British East India Company towards forestry, plantations, etc. Here in this second module, we are going to learn the rise of commercial forestry. As the first part of this, we will learn the entry of a great personality to India. His name was Dietrich Brandis. Who was he actually? Who was Dietrich Brandis? He was a German expert in forest management and the science of conservation of forestry. He was especially invited to India. We saw the entry of Dietrich Brandis to India. He had something to say. He had realized that a proper system had to be introduced to manage the forest, and people had to be trained in the science of conservation. The people must be given training in the science of the conservation of the forestry. This system would need legal sanction. Rules about the use of forest resources had to be framed. Felling of trees and grazing had to be restricted so that forests could be preserved for timber production. Anybody who cut trees without following the system had to be punished. Brandis set up Indian Forest Service in 1864 and helped formulate the Indian Forest Act of 1865. The system they taught here was called scientific forestry. What is scientific forestry? In scientific forestry, natural forests which had lots of different type of trees were cut down. In their place, one type of trees was planted in straight rows. This is called a plantation. Forest officials surveyed the forests, estimated the area under different type of trees, and made working plans for forest management. They planned how much of plantation area to cut every year. The area cut was then to be replanted so that it was ready to be cut again in some years. The forests were divided into three categories: reserved forests, protected forests, and village forests. The best forests were called reserved forests. Villagers could not take anything from these forests, even for their own use. For house building or fuel, they could take wood from protected or village forests. How were the lives of the people affected? Let us discuss. Foresters and villagers had very different ideas of what a good forest should look like. Villagers wanted forest with a mixture of species to satisfy different needs. The forest department, on the other hand, wanted trees which were suitable for building ships or railways. They needed trees that could provide hardwood and were tall and straight. So, particular species like teak and sal were promoted and others were cut. The Forest Act meant severe hardship for villagers across the country. After the act, all their everyday practices, cutting wood for their houses, grazing their cattle, collecting fruits and roots, hunting and fishing became illegal. People were now forced to steal wood from the forests, and if they were caught, they were at the mercy of the forest gods who could take bribes from them. Women who collected fuel wood were especially worried. It was also common for police constables and forest guards to harass people by demanding free food from them. How did the forest rule affect cultivation? One of the major impact of European colonialism was on the practice of shifting cultivation. This is a traditional agricultural practice in many parts of Asia, Africa, and South America. In shifting cultivation, parts of forests are cut and burned in rotation. Seeds are sown in the ashes after the first monsoon rains, and the crop is harvested by October November. Such plots are cultivated for a couple of years and then left fallow for 12 to 18 years for the forest to grow back. A mixture of crop is grown on these plots. In central India and Africa, it could be millet, in Brazil, manioc, and in other parts of Latin America, maize and beans. What was the attitude of colonial government towards shifting cultivation? They were totally against shifting cultivation. They regarded this practice as harmful for forest. They felt that land which was used for cultivation every few years could not grow trees for railway timber. The land used for cultivation will not be suitable for the growth of large trees. When forest was burnt, there was the added danger of the flames spreading and burning valuable timber. Shifting cultivation also made it harder for the government to calculate taxes. Therefore, the government decided to ban shifting cultivation. As a result, many communities were forcibly displaced from their homes in the forests. Hi, dear children. Shall we revise? Did you understand all these concepts? Okay. You have 4 questions here to be answered. The first one is about Dietrich Brandis. We had discussed about that personality, his entry, his assignment, his contributions, etc. And think about the shifting cultivation. Can you? And the third question is the categorization of the forest. We had discussed very detailedly about the categorization of the forest. Do you remember? And the last question is about shifting cultivation. We had studied that the colonial government, the British government were against the practice of shifting cultivation. Find answer to this question also. For all those questions, you just try to find at least 2 or 3 sentences as the answers. Thank you.